get organized. Megan, how are we doing? See everybody coming on?
We're doing all right, but we don't have a quorum as of yet. We have you, Mary, and Maureen is who I'm seeing. Oh, hold on. Jack's over on the other side. So let me bring him over.
All right. Matt's on now. Okay. Has anyone said that they're not going to be on? Megan.
So John Trudell is not going to make it. And Matt told us he may or may not.
He's going to be late.
Late. Yeah.
Yep. It is Dave.
I'm trying to bring Jack Gardner over.
Hey, everybody.
Okay. It's Jack.
Yep, Jack's here.
Cool. Maureen. We need 6, right?
Yes.
What's up?
You need 6. So you have 6 right now.
Yeah, I know, but let's wait a few minutes. Is Wendy coming on?
As far
See
as
her
I
coming
know-
on yet?
Mm-mm.
We got myself, Mary, Barry, Dave, Jack, and Maureen as of right now, correct? No John. And what about Bert? Megan?
I don't see Bert.
Okay.
I think we're waiting on Bert and we're waiting on Wendy.
Okay. So no Bert. So you know for sure he's not coming, or is it just no Bert so far?
So
Okay.
far, I haven't heard from him. So
Okay. Bert. Okay. So that's okay. Okay. Hi, Patrick. How are you? Hey, Joe. Nice to see you. Mary, nice to see you. Jack, God bless you.
How you doing?
That's all I can say about you.
Are
Okay.
you doing the roll call now?
I guess we'll do a roll call, yeah. But I'm just saying hello, that's all. So we'll start, I guess. Welcome to the planning board meeting for April 25th.
Planning Commission.
And we'll be meeting.
Planning Commission,
Excuse
not
me?
Planning Board.
Did I say that? Oh, I'm sorry. It's planning commission meeting for April 25th. Sorry about that. And we will be pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12, 2020 order regarding the meeting law. We'll be following that. And for the time being, at least, anyway. So thank you all for coming, and we'll do a roll call vote for who's here. Mary Longacre,
Good evening.
Barry Rector,
Present.
Dave Iverson,
Here.
Jack Gardner,
Yeah.
Maureen Phillips. I just saw she's on for sure.
Here.
Thank you. And John's not coming. Bert hasn't shown up, and I texted Wendy and she hasn't got back to me. So thank you all for being here. I'll accept a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved, sir.
Second.
All those in fit. Maureen, you're muted. Okay, there you go.
I have I wasn't sure when to bring this up, but there's an item on the agenda that I think may be inadvisable. And I wasn't sure whether to wait till we get to it or to mention it now, since we have to approve the agenda. I guess I would like to, if it's in order, since we didn't have any discussion, I would like to mention my concerns with one of the items.
Well, go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
So, this is regard to the item regarding the Inky editorial that came out last week.
Mhm.
And personally, I think that editorials are opinions, and that's all. They're fair comment. I don't think that town entities should object to them, comment on them. I think we should take them in stride. And I believe that's pretty much the practice for, most of the town entities. As a member of this committee, the Concom, and frankly, as a lawyer, I really think this is inappropriate, and I would advise us just to let it go. On the Concom, we have been called a lynch mob. I have been called a lawyer. A lawyer. That's pretty bad. I have been called a liar. And I just don't think it is appropriate for us to consider a response or whatever may have been in there that's wrong, incorrect, what have you. I really, really strongly urge us to let it go. I think that would be the best thing. Obviously, this is going to get discussed on Monday and at town meeting, and I just don't think it would be appropriate for us to get into it today. So I don't approve for myself. I don't approve that item on the agenda.
Okay. Does anyone else have any comments on that issue? I hear your point, Maureen. I think that just clarification is I don't think that's out of order or the wrong thing to do when there are multiple points made that may not be factual, or I get that you say it's an opinion. But in the last couple of weeks, there's been quite a bit of reporting in the paper that I would say is definitely pretty harsh for us. I think there's a lot of confusion right now. I think there's been a lot of confusion for a long time between the commission, the board, and different things. People don't know which is which. People don't know the master plan 4181D legislation. There's a lot of different things that get said.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, Mary, go ahead.
This sounds more like a discussion of the topic rather than a discussion of the agenda. Should we table that subject until we reach it on the agenda, unless somebody wants to make a motion to remove that item from the agenda entirely?
Okay,
I would like to, excuse me, I would like to make that motion because I don't disagree with anything that Nat said, but that's just it. I think we should take it in stride, put up with it and move on to, to the next thing, if you will. I mean, the Conservation Commission has been in a similar difficult position where lots of people are commenting on what we do and haven't done and leave things out. I just don't think it's feasible in any way, shape, or form to, to put it on our agenda and have it.
I don't know where she got that from.
okay.
Anyway, so I strongly urge us just to let it. Thank you. So I make that motion.
Is there a second? Okay, lack of a second, it'll stay on the agenda. Okay.
Mr. Chairman, just point of order.
Yes, go ahead.
Could you please take a vote to approve the agenda then?
Yeah. Yeah, okay. So those opposed? Mary?
Opposed?
You need a roll call
Barry.
vote?
Yeah, roll call.
Yeah, I'm just gonna go through the names I have, in order. Mary?
Vote to approve the agenda, yes.
Yeah, Barry?
I concur with Mary.
Dave?
Yes.
Jack?
Aye.
And chair votes aye. Okay, Maureen, nay, okay. Sorry.
Yes. Nay.
Megan, have you seen anyone come across yet? Sorry, I'm just gonna stay on my one screen.
No.
Okay. Wendy hasn't gotten back to me. I don't even have Burke's cell, to be honest. Okay, so moving on, and I appreciate the conversation. So I'll take public comment for anything that's not on the agenda. Is there any comment? Does anyone have a hand raised, Megan? Sorry.
No, that's okay. Ooh,
Oh,
sorry, that's Leslie calling, trying to get in the
I
meeting.
have mine on vibrate. Okay.
I don't see anyone for public comment.
Okay, minutes of January 24th, minutes of March 14th. Anyone have any questions, omissions, additions, corrections, etc.?
I did email
Otherwise, I'll accept the
Megan.
motion.
This is Mary Longier. I did email Megan
Yeah.
about a name on the March minutes. It was Derek Schuster that was present, not the other Derek.
Oh,
Thanks, Mary.
oh, okay. All right, with that correction, I'll accept the motion to approve both sets.
So moved, sir. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Mary.
Yeah.
So moved.
Yeah,
Barry, would you like to second?
and Barry second.
I'll second it. Yes.
Okay. All right, Mary,
Aye.
Barry,
Aye.
Dave,
Aye.
Jack,
Aye.
Maureen,
Aye.
and chair votes aye. Thank you. Okay, so first discussion item is the 21-day comment period. Andrew and Patrick, or Derek, or all three of you, I guess. Whoever wants to take that first.
Sure, I can kick it off if that's all right with you, Andrew.
Yes, great.
Thank you, Patrick.
Sure. So let me share my screen here really quick just to kind of walk you through the tip. Just a quick overview. I know most people are familiar with what the tip is. However, it's always helpful to get a refresher for the public in case if they're tuning in. So we'll turn this on here. And can everybody see that? I'm a Teams user typically, so apologies. There's a little.
Yeah.
All right, perfect.
Oh, very good.
All right, perfect. So just to kind of kick things off here, by the end of this quick 5-minute presentation, the requested action is going to be a motion to open the 21-day comment period for the draft 2023 to 2027 Transportation Improvement Program. Should that be your pleasure, of course, you could you could request something else, but that's sort of the base that we think might make sense here. So what's the Transportation Improvement Program? So it's a list of transportation projects anticipating state and federal aid, typically through grant support. There are some loan programs out there, but more typically through grant support. It's required by federal regulation of any MPO. So apologies, my 2-year-old's having a hard moment in the background there. Hopefully you can't hear that. It's required by any metropolitan planning organization that is recipient of federal funds. So, Nantucket is treated as a transportation planning organization, similar to an MPO, that makes us eligible to kind of receive funds. It can include roadway and transit projects. So these are administered by Federal Highway and the FTA. And it's fiscally constrained. And what that means is any project that's listed in the TIP has to have some kind of reasonable expectation of being able to be funded with committed or available resources. So how does it fit in with the rest of the transportation planning process for MPOs? Well, you can see the TIP is in the center of your screen here. That's that 5-year plan that we're talking about tonight, but it's informed by our long-range transportation plan, as well as our single-year unified planning work program. And so the LRTP, that has a bunch of projects that feed into the TIP, and the unified planning work program is sort of your work program to think about how you can move projects forward. So it's basically like a budget that programs, staff resources, some direct costs as well, but generally is used to support the integration of things from the LRT into the Transportation Improvement Program. And sometimes that includes doing extra studies to justify what's in the TIP. All of this is fed into the state's Transportation Improvement Program, which is known as the STIP. So basically every MPO feeds its TIP into a STIP, which in turn is included in the state's capital investment program. So just a quick overview of Nantucket's Federal Highway Program Obligation Authority. You can see across the program years here. And for the FY23 to FY27 project aid, I would just note that we don't have any roadway projects currently proposed for federal aid. That doesn't mean nothing's going on. It just means we have projects that are being funded by general local resources right now, and they are not proposed to be supported by federal aid. That being said, federal aid is available to us. It's part of our obligation. We have obligation authority, so we could consider amendment, which I'll talk about in just a minute here. We do have things in the TIP this year, which are pretty standard. You probably recognize them in previous years when you go through the TIP. Our Nantucket Regional Transit Authority is supported from federal funds by FTA. Across this cycle, it's about $2.5 million total and rural transit operating assistance, and then about $6.5 million in capital support from the state, which will include things like replacement buses, state of good repair for fare collection stations, things like that, and then an upgrade to our fare collection equipment. Should it be the case that we find a project that's a good candidate for a federal program, which we could sort of use our obligation authority for our FHWA funds, we could do in the future an amendment process. So I just wanted to put that out there. If you're looking at this and thinking, well, why aren't we including a project? There's still always the potential to come back and include something later. It's just an administrative process, which would have 2 public meetings, one before and after a future comment, a 21-day comment period, and then a vote of your approval. And so with that short overview, the recommended motion is to open the 21-day comment period for our draft TIP. And then the next steps would be to review public comments and any kind of commission discussion that you might have at your next meeting, and approval of the TIP, should it be your pleasure. So with that, I'll close here. If there's any questions, happy to answer them. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Patrick, very much for that. Have you met Paula yet?
I have. Yep.
Leary? You bring up the end. Yeah. Okay, great. So you have that relationship intact, because there's quite a few relationships you're going to have to, establish pretty quickly. So thank you. Does anyone have any questions for him? Otherwise, they'll.
Eric has his hand up.
Oh, go ahead, Maureen. Wait a minute, Derek. All right, hold on. Maureen, go ahead, and then we'll take Derek. Sorry, didn't see you there. You slid right up to the top in Andrew's spot there. Go ahead, Maureen.
I wish I could understand why these windows just swim around.
They just switch.
Yeah.
Especially the top middle one for some reason. I'm not sure why that is. Right.
Anyway, I have been asked by, I live in Nantucket, and I have been asked about the plans for both the Ames Avenue Bridge and the bridge over Long Pond at, oh good, now I'm blanking on, anyway, it was two bridge projects that I know have been.
Massasoit.
Massasoit, thank you. And and with, I guess I'm not what and I apologize for not knowing this, but would those be things that we could get federal funds for? Have we looked at doing that in the past? Because I know, we have, these projects seem to just not quite get there, and both of those bridges are in need of shape. So I want to have something to take back to our Conservation Association.
Good question. If they're included in our long range transportation plan, which honestly off the cuff, I am not sure, I'd have to go back and check. They would be eligible for inclusion in the TIP. You typically need to justify whatever project you're bringing forward through study. And also I'd have to kind of get a better understanding of what design work has been done to date, if there has been any design work done to date for inclusion. But, I can certainly check on that and give you a status update next time when we roll on back.
Great, that would be terrific, because lots of things have been done at different times, but then I would guess it is on the long-term plan, but it's the kind of thing where we get to a point and then things seem to kind of freeze and slip back a bit. And both of those bridges are quite important to maintain, and they're not in good shape. Thank you. So I look forward to that, Patrick. Thank you.
And before we go to Derek on that, because you just brought up something completely, I wouldn't have thought this would come up. There's definitely information on those bridges because of the DPW. I know there was a review of some kind done on Massasoit, and then I think the Millie's Bridge was brought up at a select board meeting the other night, but I'm not 100% sure everything that was discussed. But DPW definitely has some, I don't know if it was done by an engineer or some kind of review, some kind of report, Maureen, for sure. But maybe that's something, Patrick, maybe you could look into that with Steve or Mo or Libby. I'm not sure who would have that information, but I know there's information on those two bridges somewhere, not too distant past. I know they've had a weight limit on Massasoit because we have to drive Barrett Farm Road to go out to those houses sometimes, depends on how big the trucks are. So there's definitely been some, some work done. So Derek, go ahead. I don't see you now, but I know you're out there.
I'm here. Thanks, Nat.
Yeah.
First of all, I just wanted to say good presentation to Patrick. He covered a lot of the bases for what is expected of the TIP process. Once the 21-day public comment period is out, MassDOT, both Office of Transportation Planning and the District 5, Highway District 5 will be reviewing and providing feedback to the region. However, I did want to note just from your presentation that it looks like the financial information that Patrick shared is what our assumed amounts were before the bipartisan infrastructure law, and that the cost, which I'll provide you the actual numbers, Patrick, but it's in the range of about $640,000 to $676,000 a year. So it's about an 18 to 20% increase from what has been apportioned in years past for the regional target. And as Patrick noted, there are no projects programmed at the moment, but in the event that design advances and that they're deliverable over the time period of your TIP, they can be amended in the future. I just wanted to make sure that distinction was noted.
And I'm glad that you clarified that, and Patrick said that as well, because that's been one of those sort of, I don't want to say misinformation, but confusion about that issue, okay? And how to add a project that we don't know about or so forth, you know, so there is a process for that. Andrew and then Mary.
Mr. Chairman, I just would ask if Derek could remind us about, there are some basic requirements about putting things on the tip about right-of-way and final design, or maybe Patrick. But again, this continues to come up, and I know it's a source of confusion for some of the commission members, that, you know, we just don't simply add projects in. There has to be a final design, there has to be right-of-way, and everything assembled is certainly how I understand it, but I'm happy to be proven wrong if something's changed. So
One thing, Andrew, I want to add before I go to Mary, you know.
I had the exact same question, Matt, so we're good.
Oh, no, that's okay. Well, you might have another one when you hear what I say, because this is something that just popped into my head. You know, one of the things, Patrick, that you're going to find out here is that we have a lot of things that have gone through the pipeline, been designed and all that, and then they get sort of rejected by various means here. And this is one of the unfortunate things that happen. But that's part of us. That's just the way we are. But one of the things that's been coming up a lot lately, especially with the project that's in front of us at the planning board on Sparks Avenue. And Andrew, this is something we have to dig a little bit, but I'm wondering if the improvements to Sparks could fit into the tip, or where the funding was coming from for that, or was that something that was already appropriated? Fixing the bike path that was sort of built before we called them bike paths. That's barely, what is it, 4 feet wide? And I know that that has been, I believe that's an actual engineered plan. And then some of the other improvements that we've talked about on Pleasant Street is really not anyways near that, but I know that Sparks is. So I was just curious if that's something that could fit into the tip so that funding could be used for something different. That's just something that I thought of because of the project that's in front of us, and it's been coming up. So that's why I brought it up.
well, I can tell you that and Patrick and I have an upcoming meeting with town administration. That's one of the projects, Pleasant Street, Sparks Ave reconstruction, but both of those projects are a long way from final design. Those were only in a very preliminary design status when the DPW director left. And number two, depending on the final design, there's still right-of-way acquisitions and other things that would have to be funded. So I don't know, they might be, but again, we're a ways off in terms of, you know, being close to a final design with either of those projects right now. So.
Okay, so you already know what's going on with that then. Okay, good. Okay.
We'll have more to report. So.
And then the Phelan property is going to start coming up, Andrew. Already popped up with me today with someone. So the sidewalk and all that. Okay. What else is there? Does anyone else have any questions before we take
You were going to let Patrick and Derek answer Andrew's original question? Just to tell us more about the steps that are required before something can be put on.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Yeah, I can answer that a little. So the steps are actually spelled out in the draft tip, as well as some of the other 3C planning documents that are released by NPEDC staff. So actually at next month's meeting, Patrick will be presenting on the Unified Planning Work Program for fiscal year 2023 to also go out for 21-day release and public comment. And in that, it talks about the work that he and the team do to actually further along project selection and prioritization in order to work toward a TIP funded project. But also one of the subtasks that will be talked about next month is development of the next long-range transportation plan. As Patrick noted, it's updated every 4 years, and that plan is coming due in 2023 to be updated again. That will be an excellent opportunity for projects like the one Maureen asked about, or that you were talking about, Nat, to be reflected as goals and go through the steps with MassDOT Highway District 5, the Map It MassDOT project initiation tool, going through the transportation evaluation scoring, meeting with the right-of-way teams, and also the environmental division for all of the federally required checklist items that need to be up to snuff before you can actually program funds on your regional tip for a project. And for some places that could take a year or two. For some projects, it could take a very long time, depending on the number of abutters, you know, if you have to mitigate for endangered species, a long list of other considerations. So it is very difficult to get a project from idea to fruition, but that's why we have these processes in place. And now, again, with a dedicated planner on the island, I think you'll be in a great position to make a lot more progress on that front.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that. It's, as I said earlier, though, once Patrick gets sort of helping him in my own way too, with some different people that he needs to get sort of, I'll bring up later in the meeting, that he needs to get sort of where Mike was and where Rob was, and just this relationship, and especially with things in town and these smaller things that Mike was involved with before. It's a big reset for someone like Patrick to come in here, but I can tell by just listening to him that he has the right mindset to understand that this is not somewhere else. This is Nantucket, and you know, it's not Arizona, it's not Boston, it's not New York, it's not anywhere. It's here. So you have to change the way you think to figure things out here. So, and I think he's going to be able to do that. So does anyone else have any questions before we move to a vote for the 21-day comment? Mary, you're all set, right? Okay. So with that, I'll accept a motion to approve. Barry, oh, you want to say something, Barry?
I'm about to do what you're just going to do at this point. Was make.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
No, don't be sorry. That's okay. We're on the same page here. It's okay. We're all work
All
together.
right. Thank you.
I'm going to make a motion that we open the 21-day public comment period for the FY 23 to 27 draft tip.
Second,
Is there a second?
second, Matt.
Thank you. All those in favor, Mary,
Aye.
Barry,
Aye.
Dave,
Aye.
Jack,
Aye.
Maureen,
Aye.
and chair votes aye. Not 100% sure who seconded. Oh, Matt's here now.
And
I
Wendy
stuck
here
that in
also.
on you, Nat.
I'm sorry, Matt. I mean, you know, was that you that seconded, Matt?
That was a stealth second.
The stealth. I thought I heard a voice that was slightly different, but I thought it was Jack's. Okay, and now Wendy's on. Oh my God. Okay. Wow. I gotta fix my list.
I have Matt, Matt logged in right around 5:15 and Wendy got here right around 5:30.
Okay, perfect. Sorry about that. Okay, so Maureen, did I get your vote? I think so. Yes, okay. So Matt, we'll get you on the tip. If you're still there, you're muted now. And
Yep, I'm
Wendy.
here, yeah, I seconded it, Nat.
Oh, okay, that's right. Okay, sorry. And
That's
then Wendy, go ahead.
Aye.
I'm just trying to do the roll call correctly, that's all, in my list. Okay, thank Megan, you have all that now? We're good, so we just have John not here and Bert, okay. All right, the fertilizer discussion. Andrew?
Yeah, Mr.
Wherever
Chairman.
you went?
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I just wasn't sure if you commissioners knew what had happened with warrant article 79. And
Yeah.
that basically through the finance committee process, a new home rule petition was written by town council. Megan, do you have that to put on the screen at all? Article 79.
Yep, hold on just a moment.
Okay.
So and I think it's important to understand that the citizen warrant article changed through this recommendation. So originally it was submitted as an act prohibiting the application of fertilizer, and it has become an extension of this chapter 561. I'm sorry. It's an extension of the NPNEDC's involvement in fertilizer regulation, which was under section 1 of chapter 262 of the Acts of 2014. But basically, it requires the NPNEDC to be involved with adoption of new bylaws with University of Mass Amherst extension. So was everybody aware of this change or not?
Yes,
Okay.
I am. But this is a really important conversation, Andrew, to have the clarification of all this so everyone understands what this means versus the existing bylaws. So
The existing bylaw, and I hope you all understand that is existing bylaw is part of the Board of Health regulations, not the Planning Commission regulations. There was a period of time that allowed the regional planning agencies on the Vineyard, the Cape, and here to have a role in that. The Board of Health adopted their regulations prior, and at least the Board of Health director at the time felt that those were sufficient. Those were new at the time and were sufficient to cover the issue of fertilizers. There has been a fertilizer work group that I believe has recently become reactivated. I did include an email from Emily Molden, who is on that committee. So again, and we asked the Manella, who was the citizen sponsor of this article, to be here tonight to discuss where we are with this. Since it's a home rule petition, it does have a finance committee recommendation, and that is adopt with this new language involving the NPNEDC. So when we last discussed this, I think our consistent position all along has been that we're here to help. If our involvement is needed, we're here to do that. And before we head into town meeting, if there was any other further thoughts on this article as we move along here. So.
thank you, Andrew. We'll be back now. Okay. I think it's important, Andrew, to everyone to understand that the adoption of I believe it was June of 2012, the adoption of our regulations was prior to this thing from the state that somehow magically empowered the Nantucket Planning and Economic Development Commission to be regulatory with this, whereas the Vineyard and the Cape are completely different. With that said, though, I think it's important to understand that what you said about the committee and the regs, and we had Richard Ray was on them. We didn't even have a Board of Health. Well, the Board of Health was the select board then. So there's a lot of changes happen. And now we have a really robust Board of Health. We have Roberto, we have a lot of other people involved. I don't even know if Jeff was involved yet at that time. with the Natural Resource Department. So I think there needs to be sort of a clarification of this and how the MPDC role could work with the existing group versus, you know, a complete different change. That just, it's the situation is already in place. And I think that's what Emily was trying to say to us in that email as well. So what do you say to that, Andrew, before we go to Mary?
Well, I would agree with you, Mr. Chairman, on that. And there's a 2-year period. So if this passes, there would be a 2-year period during which time rules and regulations or bylaws would need to be developed in conjunction with the University of Massachusetts.
Okay. So what we need to do tonight, though, is to make sure that we either agree as a commission for this you know, motion that was crafted by town council, or we want to go a different direction. Am I correct in saying that?
I agree with that. And I think, you know, I think you all know that we do not have
Staff
like the
for
other
this type of thing.
agencies, we don't have a, you know, a staff level. I mean, I think we would be depending on Board of Health staff or natural resources staff to be developing this, and we would be in, you know, a different kind of role, not, you know, something that is directly related to what we've been doing. So.
Yeah. Okay, Mary, go ahead.
Thank you. Have we reached out to the UMass Extension? I had suggested that in January, and I don't know if that's happened yet, to find out what their process is or what their guidelines are for this.
Not reached out to them, no.
Okay.
So, you know, the problem is that this could get very confusing at town meeting. That's the real problem with this, because there was a discussion that the planning commission could have banned fertilizer, and, you know, just because, and that wasn't the case. And the emails from 2012 are clear as to the timing of all this. So there was never any discussion about this until this popped up, you know, what was it, about 6 months ago, 8 months ago. So it was sort of regurgitating something from 10 years ago, but at the same time, it's a legitimate discussion. We have to make sure that people understand it, Andrew. So before we have Joe speak, I'm just trying to get a feel for everyone to understand that there is a movement to rekindle the committee that we've already had, to sort of start over with their existing information. And they have, you know, we have new people involved now, which we didn't before. So I think that's a very positive thing. So not really sure what else to say. So just want to make sure we don't get all bogged down at town meeting and have something go to the state that's unnecessary. So does anyone have any comments on this before we go to Joe? I'm sure he's got his hand up. I just can't see it. Megan.
Joe's here as a panelist, since it
Okay.
was a pre-arranged agenda item.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, Joe, how are you?
I'm well. How are you doing? That goes for you.
Gotta have an echo.
Can you hear?
So are you following all this? I mean, you have to know about all
I have
this,
an echo.
right?
I'm trying to follow it all. I'm not like a super civically minded person, so I don't really follow everything that's going on. I couldn't really, when I went to the finance committee, they said that they were just gonna throw it basically to you guys, is the gist I got of it. That they let you guys kind of decide as to what is the best course of action. The only thing that I want is a healthier harbor and a healthier ponds. I just think that, you know, the fertilizer regulations aren't working. I talked to my boss, Jeff. I have to make it clear, like, this is not a natural resources thing. This is like a citizens article. So he has nothing to do with it. But, you know, Jeff, my boss, says that the fertilizer regulation program isn't working. He says that it deserves a discussion and it's a program that needs some serious reform. My idea was, you know, like, if you see somebody fertilizing something, you just have to hope that they're following the guidelines. And so I just don't think that people are following the guidelines, or if they are, the guidelines aren't strict enough, because, you know, the harbor's dying, you know, and it's dying on our watch. And I kind of just wanted to make everybody aware of that. All I want are, you know, like fertilizer not to ruin our harbor, you know, and if that means, I don't really know how to do that. I know that my article doesn't have much teeth to it, you know, even if it does pass at town meeting, it's not going to pass at the state level. So then all of a sudden everybody's like, well, the MP and EDC can do something different. So now here we are. I'm going to follow kind of, I trust your guys' opinions. I follow your advice to do whatever you think I should do. The one thing I don't want to have happen is I don't want it to pass town meeting and then just send up to the state and then just languish up there and then get denied, and then we're back to square one. So I don't know, whatever you guys think I should do, I kind of will follow. If you guys think that there should be more regulations, if you agree that there's a problem with the harbor, then I don't know, I'll follow advice, but I really am just kind of confused at this point.
Well, that's because
I also have, like, you know, some scientific papers to back up, you know, the fact that fertilizers were in the harbor. We also, you know, did the whole thing where we are, you know, spent what, $40 million to do all this sewage work for the harbor. That's, you know, why are we doing that if we're not going to fix the whole problem? I also have. All right. The last thing is that in 1997, you guys voted to ban fertilizer. So I don't know. It's been a problem for 25 years, and it's still a problem, and it's just getting worse and worse.
Matt, go ahead.
I can't hear anything.
Matthew, I can see you got your hand up. Where'd he go? Now he's over there. Matt, can you hear me? Your hand is up. I'm just.
Yeah, no,
you're
my hand,
muted.
yeah, I can now. I'm having
Okay.
trouble. That's why I turned my face off. I think I hear a little better. Sometimes it's a little funky. No, I think, Joe, you're absolutely right. I think we may have more ability than we thought we did. You know, I've been around a long time. We're not great at enforcement on some of these things. No one wants to be the bad guy, but I think you're right. We need to do something. It's been a priority of the town since the comp plan in the 90s, and, you know, my whole term on the board. And I agree with you. We've done some things that are good, but we need to do more. I look at your article and think that, you know, a positive vote for the article is a positive vote for the, you know, for the harbor quality. And even if the state doesn't do it, it's giving the NPDC and the staff direction. And I think the fact that you sent it, they put the article in, has already encouraged the fertilizer group to get together and start working. So I don't, I don't want the harbor to be completely dead on my watch either. So hopefully we will support it. And, even if it isn't supported at the state, hopefully we will get on it in the next year or so and find the funding and find the staff and get the work done. So I thank you for bringing it.
Thank you, Matt.
I'm glad he brought up the sewer in Chimo. It wasn't too long ago that was going to be the fix. So, and that was lower than 40 million, by the way. That was a good bid from Bobby Hour. So go ahead, Dave.
I think Matt said a lot very well, so I'm not going to rehash that. I think this is an important issue, but I think, and I don't know if Andrew can, I'm certainly not the person, but maybe Nat can just explain what's changed. I feel like Joe's not really clear on what's changed from his original article that he's put a lot of thought and work into. So if someone could just take a moment to maybe make sure he understands where we're at and that he's comfortable with it, because I feel like he doesn't have a full, clear picture of where we go from here.
Or I can try, Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead.
So the original article that was put in was a prohibition of fertilizer. So that was the intent, that it was going to be to prohibit the application of fertilizer. Okay. It's a similar article that was sent to the state before and was not receiving positive action. So it's unlikely to pass in that original form, to be an out and out ban on fertilizer. Okay.
Except for farms and I'm assuming certain grounds like the school fields and stuff like that. There would definitely be some.
There's certain exemptions, Department of Agriculture, fertilizers elsewhere in the Commonwealth and otherwise. So if we went with that original article, I think the feeling was from the Finance Committee, I don't speak for them, but that if that article had been recommended as originally proposed, it would just be not adopted again and, had no chance to pass. So instead, in working within the scope of that article, the motion was to basically extend the allowance, and hopefully they will grant this, of the Planning Commission to work on a bylaw that is going to be more restrictive than the state. That we would work in conjunction with the University of Mass Amherst Extension, and that we would have 2 years from the date of passage of that of the special act to get that work done. My preliminary discussions with Jeff Carlson and Roberto, I mean, there's some things that need to be addressed in the rules that we've already adopted about access and about enforcement and other aspects that are currently make the existing rules not effective. So that's what we would be working on if this is eventually passed.
Meaning, when you say passed, Andrew, just for clarification, you mean the amendment as written?
Correct.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
So if you don't agree with the amendment and want to go to an all-out prohibition, you would not vote the amendment. You would go to the original article.
Okay.
Again, and that's certainly, you certainly can do that, but I think what we are pretty sure of is that article will just go to the state and not be adopted. And the article that the Finance Committee has recommended here has more of a chance of passing, and with
that language. And what would be getting sent to the state, Andrew? Just that language?
So
or
it's
the whole article with that motion?
No, so what would go to the state is what you see on page 149, which is the FinCom recommendation, an act relative to the regulation of nutrient management and fertilizer in the town of Nantucket. It's got two sections. Section 1 is notwithstanding the provisions of 9 and 10 of chapter 262 of the Acts of 2012. Basically, that we're going to get an extra 2 years to develop additional standards.
Okay, and that can mean reinvigorating, advancing, strengthening, whatever word you want to use, the existing committee with the Board of Health, and bringing in this potential conjunction with the University of Mass, et cetera stuff, right?
Right.
Because this is, you know, and I understand what Matt's saying, I understand what Joe's saying, I understand what Dave's saying, but the planning office is not going to become the other Board of Health or the other Natural Resource Department. We already have them, and I think that having this pass strengthens the relationships between the existing groups and the existing town offices and in their strengths, and they have, that's what they do. That's what they do every day. So that's one thing about Nantucket. We're not going to have multiple offices doing the same thing. So that's why, Joe, when this was, if you looked at the emails in the original state email to the Cape Cod Commission and the Vineyard Commission, they have gigantic staff. They have state members. Like, they're not like us. They have a huge department, offices. They're like another town. So we got lumped into this somehow. I don't even know if the state knew that we weren't regulatory. They just, this is what they did because of, I think at the time, we're in the same demographic as the Vineyard in the Cape anyway. So that's why they probably did it. So, but I think Andrew's right. I think we should, you know, I think that the motion or the bylaw or whatever, how we want to call it, I think that makes a lot of sense, Andrew. And I think that we should support that. So, but I know that you've been working with, talking to Jeff and talking to Roberto about how this could move forward in that, in the original group. They want to make this work, Joe. They want people to read the directions. They want people to not have the sprinkler system running for the week after they fertilize. You know, I read the directions on the bag, you know,
Yeah.
And the problem, Joe, is we're banning a lot of stuff. I'd like to ban plastic bags, to be honest. I'm sick of looking at grass clippings in plastic bags, but we ban straws instead, okay? But I can tell you there's still plastic straws. So it's complicated. And we're, you know, there's a lot at stake with something like this. And I think that we need to get back to the drawing board and start over with an existing group of dedicated locals with departments that are actually, they weren't even here when this was originally done. We didn't have Roberto, we didn't have a real Board of Health. We had the select board acting as the Board of Health. You may not know that, but that's how it used to work. And Matt definitely knows that. So anyway, so does anyone else have anything? I think that, Andrew, I don't know what we're looking to do here, but I think that I certainly support the, you know, this amendment or whatever, what are we calling it? This is what Giorgio wrote this, but what is it called? Is this a rewrite of the article? What is home rule?
It basically is, and when we discussed the articles, this hadn't been finalized yet, so
right.
This was something that we were going to put off until that final language was adopted, and then we had a chance to have a discussion about it. So I think what we would ask is that you know, like you do with the other articles, that of course this is an article of planning concern, and that you would support the finance committee motion on this.
Yeah. And I think it's important to note that there's a lot of work went into writing this. This didn't get whipped up. And this is set to go to the state with the right language to pass. So, all right. Does anyone else have anything on this? You want to get a sense, you want to get a vote, Andrew, planning concern?
Matt's
Like we
hands
would
up again.
normally? Yeah, I see him. I
Okay.
see him. I just wanted to ask Andrew that question.
Yes, I would.
Now, I'll
Okay.
make a motion if I
Matt,
can.
go ahead, Matt.
To move to support
Okay.
the finance committee motion.
And I
Second.
second.
I'll second,
Okay.
yeah.
Maureen seconds. Okay. Mary, we'll take a vote. Mary,
Aye.
Barry,
Aye. Aye.
Yep, I hear you. Dave,
Aye.
Jack,
Aye.
Maureen,
Aye.
Matt,
Aye.
Wendy,
Aye.
the chair votes aye. Okay, Joe, where are you? I don't know where you are. I don't even know you, Joe, to be honest. But I appreciate your efforts. And nothing's easy, Joe. Just remember that. And it's not getting any easier either.
Yeah.
No matter what you hear, it's not easy to make change and to make things work. So thank you for your efforts, Joe.
I thank you all very much. I appreciate your time and listening to me. So thank you all. And thank
Yep.
you all for what you do for the town, regardless of fertilizer, just everything. Thanks for all your hard work.
Take care, Joe.
All right,
Thank
see you guys.
you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, Andrew, this is C is the transportation plan, right? Update.
Oh, we wanted to give you an update on on the master plan, some of the other, sections
Okay.
of that are coming along. So,
All right, good. I just wasn't sure. I was looking through when we already discussed it, so I wasn't positive. Okay.
basically, I wanted, one of the plans is the open space plan, which has been delayed, as some of you know, I think you all should know, is that we have a consultant working on that, Weston Simpson. And their lead staff person had a health issue that caused this to be delayed. He is now recovered from that, and met with him this past week. They've basically committed to have a draft ready for us in May, and for the commission to be able to vote on that in June. So anyway, that's certainly an issue that has been unsettled for some time. And I'm happy to report that, his health has improved. And if you may remember that our first version of this, we had a consulting group that closed shop and shut down halfway through the project. So again, this is the second impact that, through our consultants that we've had to sort of get through. But anyway, that is on the way towards closure. We do have one thing, again, I think with the master plan is that this is being done by the planning board under chapter 4181D. It's not being done by the commission. The commission reviews it for completeness, which is the process that was used last time. And we have various area plans advancing, the in-town plan. Leslie, are you out there somewhere?
I'm here.
I know that one member has resigned from that committee. I was going to get that on the agenda for this meeting, but Liz Amadobar had been serving on, and she'd been working in the land use group and had personal reasons to resign. the committee felt that they didn't need to replace her because the work is sufficiently advanced at this time. Staff-wise, we agree with that. So just to give you, unless there's any sort of difference of opinion on that, we're going to not refill that.
Oh, okay.
But we wanted to thank her for her work clearly on that. Just to update you, this is a chart that we have used with Judith when she was overseeing the project. Obviously have been talking about having, again, following the same procedure as last time of bringing a warrant article to town meeting in 2023. And that's always been the date that we've talked about consistently. That's been the date that we've been following, partly because of the release of census information, which was delayed, and that clearly is important to set our housing goal and to update the information that we had from the last, that actually came in after we finished the 2009 master plan. So it's important to have that updated. And again, not all of the housing and population information has been released yet. One project that we hope to bring to you soon is the build-out analysis. Again, the consultants have been working on that pretty much consistently throughout late fall and into the spring. So I think we'll be reviewing that data very soon. The housing production plan has been updated, as you know. Staff spent a lot of time updating that. That's now current. I also reached out to natural and cultural resources. Again, we need more assistance on that section of the plan. Something I've talked to Holly about, something that we had reached out to our visitor services. That position, I think, you know, is in flux. So that section is going to need work in the next quarters. Again, I think you've heard the update about transportation. So our next 3 quarters, we have a busy schedule to meet in order to bring the plan forward at the date that we have I want to comment on this 10-year, and again, you know, some of this was misreported in that article, but there is no requirement for a 10-year update. I don't know where that is. Well, I do know where it's come from, and it's been consistently corrected. However, that has not seemed to take hold. And I want to refer you to basically the first page of our executive summary, which talks about that, which talks about the plan is intended to be relevant for at least 10 years, but ideally 20. And the elements will be periodically updated. So again, this 10 years and that somehow we've missed a deadline is absolutely false. And I think it's important that there's no requirement for 10 years in the Chapter 4181D section of the state law, which governs this. The specific language is, in fact, that it is updated from time to time. So if there's any questions about that, I'm happy to discuss it. But again, I think the roles, part of this continuing confusion is something that, you know, I think we do need to talk about as we look at updating our legislation, something that we've already committed to. But I think there is confusion, and certainly in this article and otherwise, it has been misrepresented. So to answer any questions.
Thank you, Andrew. And again, just to kind of roll back a little bit on the, how do I say this the right way? So on the build out, Andrew, okay, now I haven't heard build out talked about in the last few months, but that was a hot one a year ago. And now we're in full housing mode. We change a lot. It's hard to keep up with what the latest desires are. It's not that easy to do, okay? But when this whole thing with the build out analysis started a while back, and I remember telling you, this is going to scare people. It reminds me of when Ron Bambo was at town meeting a few years ago with his maps. Remember that? And how much buildable land there is, even if you don't realize that's there, okay? Depending on what area of the island you're looking at. So, and I think that this is actually a better time for the build out analysis to emerge than it would have been, say, 6 months ago or 8, because I think the mindsets are ready to hear that now versus the past. If I had a crystal ball, it wouldn't it have been great to have the covenant program 20 years ago? You see what I mean? Like, no one thought about those things then. Now we can't have enough covenants, and we're probably never going to have enough. So it's hard to, I think the build out analysis will help the covenant program if it gets advanced in a town meeting this year to be increased. So, because I don't think people really fully understand the amount of infill that it is capable, okay? And I think the Affordable Housing Trust is moving in that kind of direction. And if we get the housing bank passed, it's going to help that all kind of merge together. The ability to create more covenants. Anyway, does anyone have any questions or with Andrews just mentioned, or Mary, go ahead. Thank you.
Just a comment on the 10-year timeline for the comprehensive plan. I was just thinking, if we had released a new plan in 2019, we would have missed all of the issues of the last couple of years, whether that's COVID or short-term rentals or PFAS or all of the staffing changes and new positions. I mean, there's a tremendous amount that has changed in the last couple of years. And I think that our new plan, and it is time to do one, will be much better informed by the knowledge that we've gained. So I don't think we've lost anything with this delay.
Yeah.
I think we've actually gained a lot of good perspective.
And that's actually, you say things a lot better than I do, Mary, because I was kind of thinking something like that with this covenant thing. And now we have Affordable Housing Trust that is, 2 years ago, nobody ever knew what it was. Now everybody knows, well, they should. And there's a lot of good work being done on these things now. And it's important, I think. I mean, not to say that COVID gave us a sort of a pause, but it did in some ways, and it is a different reflection. The problem is, of course, the property value issue. This is the only negative side of COVID on Nantucket, in my opinion, is we didn't see that coming. But I think that there is a lot of positive things that have come out of the last 3 years, in the sense of we've learned a lot more. And so I think that when that build out analysis comes in, it's going to help us with sewer stuff. It's going to help us. Everybody's going to be seeing what's happening with sewer now because of the pressure main, but there's a lot of other work that's going to be done too. So Matt, you had your hand up first, I believe. You slipped over to the other screen again though. So
Yeah, now just
go ahead.
a couple quick comments. You can hear me?
Master
My
plan.
internet's unstable. The covenant program is probably close to 20 years old. It came out of the comp plan process and was one of the
Yeah, but-
successes from that endeavor.
But it was,
And I think,
but it wasn't called a
I wish
covenant
we had
then.
I wish we had. Well, anyway, that's where that was from there. And I do think we will, this is going to have to be a working document. Some of the crack recommendations will probably not be in it. The coastal resiliency plan will be in, but part of the planning says that we are to work on a bunch of issues that will have to be across different groups, this group, Concom, et cetera. And I think that though, so it'll be important that we update this sooner rather than later as we move forward on that aspect for sure. And I think part of our goal here is, in the planning world is to engage as many people, as much of the public as possible, so that these, so some of those are successful. And so I'm just putting my crack hat on to say that has to be, front and center.
So, Andrew, could you just clarify what Matt said about that? The previous covenant was the condo part, right? And when did we switch that to the actual separate ownership? When was that?
Sure, the exact date, but I know that our switching to expand the options to include fee simple ownership expanded the covenant participation quite a bit. I don't know exactly the date offhand. I can look it up.
I can't remember when that was, like 10 years ago.
No,
something like that.
But that change, really helped. And I think, you're seeing, again, that made the properties more attractive to lend on and to own
The banking
and
issue.
finance.
That was the
So,
big one.
Yep, that was very important. And I totally agree that, the 2009 plan did not address any real coastal resiliency or sea level rise issues at all. And that we've said from the very beginning that those items need to find their way into the new plan. They're most likely going to be in service and infrastructure areas. That particular section of the plan is, and Megan, can you I want to bring up the implementation section of the master plan too, because it's as relevant now as it has always been. Because the plan and implementation of the master plan is not just the planning commission or the planning board. We are the lead agencies in some of the areas, but we're also secondary to other groups that are supposed to take the lead on certain things. And we'll see what I mean if when Megan puts that slide up. So again, along the top are the 9 chapters, and since this is a planning board plan, the goals and policy statements, planning board is primary, land use is primary, which is why we've spent so much time working with the zoning. I do find it, I guess, ironic to think that the zoning bylaw is not a long-term item, and that it's something that basically sets the density and everything for the future, and that somehow that isn't as important. And quite frankly, that should have been done years ago. Where I think one of the things that we've added into our planning board report, if you have seen the warrant, you should I think take great pride in the fact that our mix of high and low density areas has been greatly improved under our work over time. And that's on page 178, which is a breakdown of the various areas by zoning district. NPNEDC has primary focus on services and facilities, circulation as a transportation entity, and implementation. But remember that the Board of Selectmen and other groups listed here, and this of course needs to be updated as part of the plan, have primary lead responsibilities as well. And certainly in the area of housing and economic development, we are here basically to assist them in those goals, but many of that is led by them. So anyway, there's another slide that I think it's important. I would ask you, I've been sending you all some reading material. I hope you've been able to look it over. Like the 1960 report on regional planning. Hopefully you got that. Some of the original, the legislation from Martha's Vineyard that our legislation was based on.
Yeah.
But I think this is an important, that talks about behavior of the group, which differentiates between work and fight and flight. And I think that it's worth a read and worth some reflection by all of us as we follow this process. And again, this was sent to you earlier, but I can certainly resend it if any of you haven't spent any time with it.
Andrew, can I just add something to, it's actually something that Matt said, it kind of, you touched on it a little bit, is one of the crossovers of different groups, like the strategic plan, the select board strategic plan has a lot of things in it that sort of go back and forth between some of the things that we're discussing, some of the things that have to do with planning, have to do with the town. I mean, that this is one of the things that I think, and we're sort of talking about the, the whole, the newspaper last week, et cetera. I mean, we're kind of doing that right now, actually, which I think is a good discussion to have, regardless of whether this was in the paper or not, is the confusion of who does what, who's in charge, who makes this decision. I mean, I could go on for hours about this stuff. This place is very, very difficult. It's easy to build a school than it is to fix a parking space or move a pole or create a loading zone that actually works. It's very difficult, okay? And it's frustrating for especially for someone like me who is trying really hard to do a lot of these things in a very, very subtle little way without making any big deal, trying to stay in my lane. And it's a tough thing to do. And that's just the way Nantucket functions. But at the same time, and bringing up crack and adding that in as well, there's a lot, like we have the collaboration that I see working with the land bank now, with the town and with some of the initiatives that are happening is really important, because that wasn't happening and it's happening now. And I think that, but nothing happens overnight. It takes a lot of time. So I think the way the water company and the sewer works together, now that's old news now, but that's, to me, brand new, but it's already happening. It's been happening for 3 or 4 years, and that's really important. So I just, Mary said about the 3 years. I mean, that's actually a really good way to look at this, is by the time you fix what everybody wanted fixed, there's already a new problem. We're always behind. And I don't see that ever really changing, because you can't predict everything. It's impossible. We didn't know the fast boat was coming 2 years before it was here. Nobody ever even brought it up. So, and that isn't anybody's fault. And Andrew, the zoning, I want to ask you another question that I didn't think of before. I didn't have it written down. On this Weston and Sampson stuff you're doing, okay? And that, by the way, I think that they're the best people to use, because they've taken over from the other company. What was the other guy's name that was here? Tom? No, the original sewer, whatever. I can't think of the guy's name, but I'll think of it after the meeting, but I can't remember it right now. I can see him at a meeting, but I can't remember his name. But anyway, so I hope that existing zoning versus the changes is somehow in this build out analysis. What could have been versus what now, because there's a lot of, that's another conversation that's very hard to have, okay? Because when you look at, say, 3M subdivision and Pine Valley. Those are the two that are the easiest ones to look at. If they were left in their original zoning until now, today, 2022, I guarantee we would not get those zoning changes. You would have 5,000 square foot lots, 50% ground cover, a lot of buildable potential in some of those areas that we've sort of preserved in their, you know, quarter acre zoning. So it's complicated. And at that time, that was the right thing to do. Everybody thought that was the right thing to do. And I still think people do. But again, none of that was done originally. We learned the hard way about the east side of Rugged Road. We're still dealing with the east side of Rugged Road, Andrew. And you and I were in the 9th grade. So nobody can blame you for anything here. That was in a crazy, weird zoning district from 72. And then it got put into R20 sometime around 77. And here we are 20, 30 something years, 40 years later, dealing with the result of not having that in the right zoning. Not an easy thing to talk about. So I think the build out analysis is going to help us in that conversation. That's what I mean. I think it's going to help define a lot of the confusion with zoning. So we've gone this far. You should have all that information, how many lots were removed, how we've changed. Because if you ask someone from Nantucket that's not paying attention and you say, have we made more or less zoning in the last 15 years, more buildable, they'll say more buildable every time, but it's not true. It's not even close, but that's what the perception is. So I think that report isn't just for telling us what's left to build. I think it needs to say what could have been built too. Would you agree with that?
Have a separate, we've been tracking a separate calculation, at least in the sewer district, about, you know, the changes that basically add or delete to, our count has been by dwelling unit. It hasn't really gone into, you know, total square footage and ground cover and things like that.
Right.
So we do have a separate count going on that, at least as it applies to the sewer district. But I think we're going to include some different calculations that we're working with our GIS person on, at least, you know, to tell the story about, you know, development island wide. And, you know, I know that there can be the perception, because there's a lot of construction projects that that means that, you know, development is unlimited and not regulated, but that's just, you know, typically not true. If you look in the 1980s, something that, again, I've talked about before, where over 500 lots are created each and every year throughout the 80s. That's every year through that decade, where we're now at more like 50 and less in certain years. You know, the period of major development in terms of, you know, creating lots, creating the legal structure for future building, that passed us, you know, quite some time ago. So continues to be houses constructed, replacement houses constructed, but there's also houses being removed as well, through erosion and land bank acquisitions and other things. So
that's another good point. I didn't think of that either. That's another good point, Andrew, is how many dwelling units are built on a fresh piece of land versus a piece of land that had a house on it. That's another point that's important. The guy's name, by the way, was Tom Parisi from Earth Tech. Thank you, who sent me that. I could not think of his name. I could see him on TV, but I still couldn't think of his name. So I think that you're doing the right thing with that, Andrew, because those guys have all that information that, you know, with all the sewer work that they've done and all that taken over from the other company. So
right, and I think, you know, it's important that they're building. I mean, Weston and Sampson is building on information they created for the sewer plan, which is a project that I worked with town administration on, the sewer master plan, with David Gray and his group. The Park and Recreation, at least when Rob was here, did a pretty complete Park and Recreation facilities plan. And again, the open space plan is intended to be consistent with that. So there have been individual plans underway in between that has taken our time and attention during all of this. And these firms like us have been, I think somewhere, oh, COVID and this, well, there are impacts to employees and available participants that are real. It's not an excuse, it's a reality where positions have been very difficult to fill. People have left positions. And as you well know, it took us a significant amount of time to get our transportation planner, back on board. So these firms have the same types of issues affecting them as well. And you really shouldn't forget that in the broader world, there is, the same types of impacts, whether it be supply chain or labor. It's impacted by COVID and what has been affecting, the entire country. So of the staff members and these consultants have left, and then we have to start over again. So.
And I think that we're starting over with information that we already have. So we're sort of restarting over, kind of, and that's what I'm hoping we can do. That was my point of bringing that up with Patrick earlier and trying to get all these relationships going so that he can pretend he was here already, kind of thing. You know what I mean? Because it's not easy. It takes a long time to figure this place out. So
Patrick he has been meeting a lot of people, I know. So
that's good stuff. I love it. That's very important. So, all right. So I think we're sort of, already kind of talking about the Article 81 mischaracterization, et cetera. So we've kind of covered most of that stuff, Andrew. So I want to bring up.
Mr. Chairman, I don't want to impact anyone's quote opinion on things, but I do think that where there are things where if opinion is based on total misinformation or things that are completely untrue, I think that we do have a responsibility to point that out. And
I agree completely. I'm just saying, I think we've sort of divulged into a lot of those points with this discussion, which I think is good to have. One of the things, though, it's similar to what's happened with the steamship legislation issue. There was no conversation at all. And a lot of the stuff that happens here in these issues is there's never any real questions asked and so that's, I spoke with Julian the other day, saw him downtown Saturday, and we had a really good conversation, and it was interesting, some of the things he said to me. So I think that, I don't know, maybe it's just the last 2 years, Andrew, I don't know, but there's a lot of jumping the gun type stuff, that happens now, and it's part of the culture. It's part of people wanting things right away. I mean, the Vineyard versus Nantucket is like not even comparable anymore, but that's what caused some of this. And over here, we have our own, issues with how come we didn't do this 20 years ago? How come we didn't do that? Why aren't we planning for this? And it's like, I can name a lot of things. And that Daybreak piece a couple of weeks ago, when we didn't want the railroad and we didn't want sewer and water, I didn't know that. That's a good one. That sort of tells me a lot. So can I bring up something else under a discussion item under other business, Andrew, that Mary and I discussed, and you and I discussed as well? The committee stuff we sort of are gonna be bringing that in June. Just want everyone to know that we haven't forgotten that. So we have the capital committee appointment. We have the bylaw committee, which has sort of gone around in circles a little bit with Judith and now Fritz, and we have to fix that. And what was the other one? Crack? Or is that?
A replacement person for that. I
Right.
think,
So I think the best thing for us to do is to, and you had suggested this, to wait till the regular appointments. Because there's
Typically-
not gonna be any capital meetings.
right, we typically appoint all of these positions at our June meeting. That's after the end of the election. That's when the officers are elected and any appointments are made as of June, unless there's a reason to do it sooner in May for some reason.
Yeah, I think that was a really good point Mary made, and I think we need to just clear that up, make sure that no one thinks we're forgetting this stuff. So, with that said, does anyone else have any questions? Maureen, there you are. You got your hand up, sorry. You moved to that famous top middle spot. Now you moved again. There you go.
Okay. No, I had a motion that I would like to make about Fritz. And I thought it would be appropriate for us to make a motion to thank him for his years of service and good counsel on the planning board and of course our committee and also CRAC. So I would like to do that. I move for us to vote to do that.
I'll
And
second.
a letter, and a letter of recognition as well.
Yeah, thank you.
I'll
That's a
sign
great idea.
that. I'll sign that. With that, Mary seconded. All those in favor? Mary, sorry. Barry,
Aye.
Dave,
Aye.
Jack,
Aye.
Maureen,
Aye.
Matthew,
Aye.
Wendy.
Aye.
And chair votes aye.
Thank
Thank you, Maureen, very much. Anything else you want to talk about? Anyone have any comments on stuff we just talked about? Dave, still a great point. Grass is kind of brown in the background there, Dave.
Maybe some fertilizer would help. I don't know.
Fertilizer.
I'm sorry. That was important.
Oh, I know. I was actually thinking that, but I was thinking more about the artificial turf. Matt, what do you got? Is that you with your hand up, or is that?
That's
from the
me. Yeah,
previous-
that's me.
Okay.
Yeah, just one thing I've been thinking about, you talk about the select board and the strategic plan, et cetera.
Yep.
And I think at this point, from what I'm hearing and seeing and feeling, trying to hire staff and seeing what's happening with businesses and talking to business owners, we aren't gonna, I agree with Andrew that there's certain things we can't done because haven't been able to get done. But I don't see it getting a whole heck of a lot better because there's nowhere for anybody to live. And so I think that has to be priority number 1, 2, and 3. And, every 4 or 5 years, I say something like that to the chamber, and on Thursday, I send a letter to the chamber saying, it's great to want to have a entrepreneurial thing and do this and that and the other, but the focus needs to be housing, housing, housing. Because I think increasingly the town will not be able to do what it needs to do, and businesses will not be able to do what they need to do if there's no one here left to do it. So I think that should inform, you were earlier talking about things changing. And I think that is one huge thing that's changed in the last 5 years or so. And there's no groups of kids renting homes. There's no groups of kids here to hire, like we all remember. And I think that, we have to really, if we're going to spend time, if we want to fix transport, we want to make an improvement on transportation, an improvement in planning, an improvement in town services, it all is going to come down to how do we hire people and how do we house people? So I think if I could pick one thing to concentrate on this year for this group, it would be working on that with the chamber, with the housing advocates, with the select board, anyone that will do it, and see what we can come up with, because it is at a crisis mode. And I think you're going to see, I'm hearing stories of cleaners who are firing their cranky customers, or refusing to take certain types of cleaning because it's too stressful and they don't have to anymore. I'm hearing of landscaping families who are just cutting back by half, and people are calling people trying to find plumbers, and I think like right now I think we're at a really crucial time, and I think that's going to end up being, when we talk about our strategic planning, I'm going to try to make that number one, because I think everything else flows from it. And I think this group needs to do so as well.
And how do you pay them? And that's another issue, Matt. We'll never catch up to the private sector. We were almost caught up, and now we're backwards again. Same thing as with the steamship. We have the Nantucket wages don't match. It just doesn't work here, so. But
Well,
anyway,
again, that's too long. Let me follow up. That's too long.
that's
a conversation
complicated.
for
I'm
right
just
now.
saying.
Yeah, but instead of attacking it from a standpoint of there's nothing we can do, I think we need to look at it from the standpoint of what is it we can do, and what can we do that can help us a little bit here and here and here. And then, we're not going to get the home run right out of the gates, but I think if we shouldn't be defeated, and we shouldn't say it's not possible.
Barry, you got something?
Yeah, I do actually. I have to agree with Matt, but the dynamic, there's a lot more dynamics. It is not just a very simple thing. I mean, there are plenty of things in the works. We still need to work with the senators up and the representatives up in Boston to get the housing bill passed. That's a very critical thing that has to happen. All this has to have some type. You talk about putting affordable housing in place, but there also has to be the funding to make it happen. So even if you dedicate land for it, it's still a matter of where's the money coming from. And there's been a number of things going on. So I mean, you've got the housing bill that we need to do. And I don't want to sound like negative Nancy here, but every time the land bank does something, it's great. It's lovely for conservation. It's a beautiful thing. But on the other side of the equation, it also takes up another piece of land. And when that happens, land again becomes more valuable out here. Subsequently, the price starts going up behind it. We've talked ad infinitum about that. Fortunately, there's been some things the land bank's trying to work on with us now, which is great. But there needs to be more of that partnership. We lost a tremendous amount of our workforce when the H-1B visas were all of a sudden basically turned off a few years ago. And again, that was an incredible labor force that we had that brought in a lot of people from like Ireland, England, Jamaica, that really helped to bolster our summer needs. And people understood when they took someone on board like that, they did need to provide housing. And my God, it's taken us a long while to get, even as a town, to get to that stage of making serious financial commitments to be able to have affordable housing happen. For the number of years that I've sat on things like the Community Preservation Committee, which really has helped with affordable housing. I remember some of our first initiatives that went before the town for like $2 million, $3 million to be able to get affordable housing in place the better part of 8-9 years ago, and it was flatly rejected by the town. So it's taken this long and again, 8 or 9 years ago, think about what you could have done then with the money in that day. Here we are now. We're finally getting there, but unfortunately, we're also at a juncture too with supply chain issue and the way the economy is now setting itself up, ready for a recession. All of a sudden, everything's becoming more. It's costing more to do it, and even simple things. We look at like Tacoma Green, for instance, which should have been off the blocks several years ago, but was tied up by major lawsuits. Now, all of a sudden, the headline reads, now they're $6 million in debt. And that was only because the project got tied up in that. I'm not to assign any value one way or another, but the economics of that are very real things. So I hear it, but it's really going to take some major financial commitments to be able to get these type of projects off the ground.
$6 million in debt and they haven't built it yet.
I'm sorry. So we really do need those kind of projects happening, but there has to be that full level commitment, because it is truly not just inherent upon us to be able to do it. It's inherent upon the willpower of the town to be able to do it as well too. And we keep trying to put systems in place like the covenant and other things. They work, but again, there's a lot of moving components.
Not enough numbers.
Well, and it's not just one simple thing. There's a host of dynamics that fall out underneath it that will influence how that goes as time moves along. If we get into our next recession, who knows how people are going to feel about their wallets when it comes to town meeting and we start approaching that. So that's all I'm trying to say is it is a complex issue that has a lot of different dynamics to it, and you need to be aware of what those are, as well as how do you begin to coax them out to get to a unified goal here. I don't think it's impossible, but it is a big job. And I think you also need to recognize too what has transpired underneath over several years worth of time. By the way, I love you all, but I need to get you back on board with things. There's a master plan. I've heard it called an affordable plan. I've heard it called a comp plan. It really is a master plan at this point, because it gives it its due recognition and what the process is that we have to conform to the state. So, I sat on the comp plan, and that's a story for another day. But it's really important too that we make sure that the verbiage that we use with this is very consistent across the board as well too. Because if it confuses us sometimes, imagine how it confuses the general public. So I'm just going to urge you as well too that, please try to be consistent in our nomenclature here. It's very important. I'd love to have this conversation with you all, and maybe we need to do that in the not too far future again. Sometimes having these conversations really does make a big difference. And I know we try to talk about it at times, but there's other business to be conducted too. And maybe it's time to get back into a forum or two that just kind of spins around one or two of these topics very specifically. Anyways, thank you. I really appreciate the opportunity to comment here.
Dave, is that you still?
That's me. Sorry, I don't want to take up too much time, but I think that Barry was right on target there about a lot of things. But I think as far as housing, we need to really start to branch out and not have this like linear movement to just buy, build. We need to really start looking to ways to preserve the local neighborhoods we have, whether it's through deed restrictions. I think we need to partner with the land bank to figure out a way we can carve out some housing opportunities through the properties they're buying. So I think that there's a lot of approaches that we haven't touched because we've been so busy managing the shy list and trying to build housing that we really need to focus on preserving local neighborhoods in a meaningful and long-standing way. And that will help us create sustainable houses and sustainable neighborhoods and a better local community. So I'll get off the soapbox, but thank you.
No, Dave, 100%. And I'll say one more thing to that, to everything that Barry said, that you said. It's the perception is always that we're behind, but we are in most cases, because there's no way to not be in most of these things. But it isn't for lack of trying. And I think that the housing group stuff now is so well oiled compared to what it was in the past. So I think that that's a really important thing, that it's working, especially with the land bank sort of being in the discussions now a little bit. It's very helpful. Maureen, did you just put your hand up 2 seconds ago and then, oh no, okay, sorry, I thought I saw you. So is everyone all set? Anyone have any more comments before we adjourn? Or Celtics are on in a few minutes. Like, get the brooms out tonight, hopefully. Does anyone have any comments? Otherwise, I'll accept a motion to adjourn. Everybody's muted. Patrick, I gotta get your cell number, by the way.
So motion to adjourn.
Second.
All right. Thank you. Mary,
Aye.
Barry,
Aye.
Dave,
Aye.
Jack,
Aye.
Maureen,
Aye.
Matthew.
Patrick, I warned you about giving your cell number to Nat. Aye.
I'll second that.
Wendy,
Aye.
and chair votes aye. Thank you all for the conversation tonight. Patrick, thank you again for being here. Thank you, Maureen. Bye, Wendy. Okay, where are we going? It's not working. There it is. Oh. I'm getting it. Dave likes Barry. Yeah. Not sure yet.